Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Grip Wild Men Who Matter podcast. We are very excited to be back. We've taken a little hiatus, and not because we got lazy, but because we have been working on a really cool project for the last 2 months. You've probably heard about it if you listen to our podcast, but we have dove in deep to developing a 10-week men's small group video series that has really been a blessing, but it has really been a undertaking on our part, our resources, our time, our efforts. But here we are on a rainy day in Alabama, and we looked at each other and said, let's get in there and get a podcast recorded. What is up, Brando? Whoa.
We are hiding out from the rain. The much-needed rain here in Alabama, dude. It's been dry.
It is soaking right now. I mean,
but it is not dry anymore.
It is not. There's no telling how much rain we've actually had today. It had to have been a couple inches.
Yeah.
And I know that doesn't sound like a lot if you're not in the world of rain, but a couple inches of rain is a lot.
Yeah, especially when it falls before lunch.
Yes, and so
I'm good, man. I'm good to be back. You know, I took a little trip.
You did
while we were working.
AKA, sorry, sucker.
I guess I had to go back and get my mountain fix. I hadn't been for 2 months.
Absolutely. So Brandon has just come back from a week in the mountains, but this time not the mountains of Colorado, the mountain, I guess, of Wyoming. Is it a mountain or is it more? Is it are they valleys?
So we were in the high desert prairie on the edge of the Bighorn Mountains.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
up there in Buffalo, Wyoming.
And so you were out there with some guys, and you guys were chasing the old pronghorn, right?
They call them the speed goats, Steve.
The old speed goats.
The second fastest land animal in the world, and I can personally now attest to seeing just how fast that is.
Wow. So tell us about this, like, paint a picture for us. Paint a picture of what was going on out in Wyoming. Let me close my eyes and help me be there. I want to be there with you, Brandon.
So just close your eyes and picture like a vast, flat, wide open prairie. And then take that picture and crumple it up and throw it away because there was no flat anything in Wyoming. I had the great opportunity to join a couple buddies of mine, and they've been going out there hunting pronghorn for several years and invited me along to tote the camera. And it was an adventure. I knew on the front end I was probably getting into something that, I knew I was getting into something I'd never done, and I knew I'd be pushing the limits, physically and trying to keep up with these guys. But I'm so glad I went. It was an amazing experience. We flew out on a Sunday, got in late at night, kind of hit the hotel around midnight. Hey, we're going to meet in the morning. We're going to get after it. Man, the first 2 days, Monday and Tuesday, was beautiful. It was 65 degrees, blue skies, that real dark blue that you get when you get up around 10,000 feet, that really deep blue. And we're out there on the prairie. We're hiking, got all the gear. We probably averaged, between 5 and 8 miles a day, chasing these goats across the prairie. And here's what's crazy. I'd never seen one in person. I bet I saw 1,000 antelope in the 5 days we were in the field. But the minute that you crossed onto the public land where we were hunting, it's like they were standing at the gate waving to you. It's like they have a map and they know, right? So we was a hard hunt, man. We had to get in there and get deep, get up high where we could see and try to find them. But after the first 2 days of being beautiful weather, we woke up on Wednesday morning and it was 15 degrees. The snow was falling and the wind chill was -5. So that was a shocker.
Wow. It's one thing to walk into a situation where it's cold, but to walk into a situation where it's a drastic shift in the middle of that. Your body panics.
I don't think I've ever experienced a 50-degree swing.
That's crazy.
And so, yeah, fortunately, people have asked me since I've been back, man, were you prepared for that? And I just kind of laugh because if you spend time outdoors or you spend time hunting, and chasing animals, you tend to check the weather before you go anywhere.
But yes, you're right. So, to cut you off there, yeah, we're usually prepared as outdoorsmen. But it's hard to prepare for a 50-degree swing because you don't normally take that much gear, right? That's 2 different setups. That's 3 different setups, really, if you think about it. So, I mean, were you really actually prepared?
I literally brought, except for one jacket, every piece of hunting clothing, base layer, underlayer, overlayer, top layer, waterproof layer. I literally brought everything I owned.
Can you think about seeing this guy in the airport with all these bags and suitcases?
Delta Airlines was just loving me every time I come to the counter, boy. So yeah, but it was crazy because we were kind of in the same areas. We were hunting this public, BLM land and Bureau of Land Management, just big wide open spaces. But man, things changed overnight. When the weather changed, the scenery changed. It didn't even look like the same places. Now it didn't change the animals. We saw animals every day, but when you're hiking up the side of a pretty steep incline in a 30-mile-an-hour north wind and it's just whipping snow in your face, there's a lot of internal dialogue that's happening, right? Like there's a lot of, what am I doing with my life? Like I'm out here, I don't even have a tag or a gun. Like what kind of guy does that?
Just carrying a camera.
And in fact, one of the guys that I met while I was there, he said, man, when I heard you were coming and you weren't bringing a gun, you were just bringing a camera, I had to ask these other guys, is he delusional? Like, who does that? And I think I questioned that myself a few times as we were in the snow. But it was crazy, just really crazy over the course of 5.5 days hunting, how we experienced such a swing. And we ended up knocking down an antelope. It was pretty cool. A good friend of mine, Paul, he's really sharp guy, ballistic. He's an engineer, so he's really good on the numbers and with the ballistics. And he was able to poke out there and get one at 513 yards.
That's a little bit of a layup shot, isn't it?
Yeah, he's got some really good equipment, but I'd never seen anything shot that far out.
Yeah.
And so, like, there's a definite delay, right, from when you pull the trigger and you actually see what happens.
Yeah.
And what's so cool is I went back and I had a really telephoto lens on the camera, and when I slowed the footage down, you can actually see the bullet going through the air as it's getting to the antelope. You can't actually see the bullet, but you can see the waves, like the sonic waves of that bullet breaking through. It's pretty cool.
Why have I not seen this footage? Like, that's crazy. Like, what are you holding out for, man?
I'm saving it for the premiere, right? But I thought it was a really good opportunity for me, and I was really fortunate and glad to do it because I like to go into a situation like that looking for a story, oftentimes when I go on an experience like that, much like we did in Colorado and we've been other places, I come back with just great stories about what happened, but then I spend a lot of time chewing on what I've learned kind of in my own space. What God's teaching me in those moments. What do I see? What am I learning? And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a hiker. Like, hiking's not my thing on the weekend. Let's go lace up the boots and let's go walk up a hill. I love being outside, but that's what 4-wheelers are for. But pushing myself like that for 5 days over and over, and it was usually twice a day. We'd go out in the morning, we'd come back to the truck, we'd eat lunch, we'd sit there for about an hour and think about going to take a nap, and then remember, no, we're here to do this, and have to will ourselves back into it. And I kid you not, every day when we got ready to get out of the car after lunch, so you had a ham sandwich and a bottle of water, a handful of M&Ms, and you're feeling like, oh, I feel good. It's finally warm. My legs aren't hurting. You look over there and look at that door handle and know I'm about to have to get out there in it again. And
wow. So what is I mean, obviously, I think anybody who's been, I consider that kind of adventurous hunting, and or really anybody who spends any time in the outdoor, any time in nature, but even more so in kind of pressed, extreme conditions where you're really being pushed to live out your goal. I mean, obviously God probably showed you some stuff. And so, I mean, what were some of your takeaways, man?
The views are amazing anytime you get to go out that way. Where we are in Alabama, it's hard to see that far. We got a lot of trees.
Absolutely.
And even when you get up in the high places in Alabama, it's a lot of trees. So when you get to a place where you get such a different perspective, it makes me think about perspective in general. It's always easier to see further when you're up higher. And sometimes in life, you gotta get to a higher perspective to be able to see beyond whatever's in front of you. If you're in the middle of a mess, if you can get above it, change your perspective and see beyond it, there's hope there, right?
Yeah.
But for me, one of the biggest takeaways that I came home with, and I've been chewing on it for 2 weeks now, when we're hiking, the snow's falling, it's slick, it's steep, and we start at the bottom. So on Wednesday, we went to a new spot we hadn't been to all week. It was after lunch, and just like I mentioned before, we were kind of in that post-lunch. I'm pretty comfortable right now. I don't really want to get back out there in it. And we're sitting in the car, and we were sitting in the car, and we were kind of parked up. We had driven to this new piece of land, and we were kind of sitting up on a ridge, kind of looking out over it. And of course, when you're hunting like that, everything revolves around the mapping software that you have. So we're studying the map to see, where the property lines are, where we can and can't go, And we're looking at this map, and we find this place that looks really good on the map, and start mapping it out. And we look out of the car window, and you can see the ridge line. Well, it's right there. It's just that ridge line. If we get on top of that, it'll open up, go back to the map, and kind of do the calculation. And it's about a mile from where we're parked on the road. And so we kind of suit up, we get out, kind of take a deep breath. Here we go. So we start out, and we're going to this point, and we kind of make our way down in the valley. We cross a fence line, and now we're at the base of the hill, and we're looking up this giant incline, about a half a mile up to the pinnacle of this ridge. And I realized it is so demoralizing when you're at the bottom of a hill and you're just looking at the top. It looks like it's forever away, And even if you're at the bottom of the hill and you're walking, you start climbing, if your focus is on the top of that mountain, it doesn't seem like it gets any closer. Like the harder you walk, the more you press, the harder I'm breathing and churning my legs. Like that point on the top of that mountain is not getting closer, it seems, But what I learned was day after day, I would just lock my focus in on the back of the guy's boots in front of me. And as long as his legs were churning, my legs were churning. So I was just one step. I became very familiar with the back of Aaron's boots, right? And he would go until he stopped to breathe. I would go until he stopped. When he stopped, I stopped. When he'd walk, I'd walk. And every time you do that, you look up after about, 30, 40 yards, and you start chunking away. And the top of that mountain gets closer and gets closer. And I don't know why it stuck with me, but, we'd get to the top of the ridge and kind of unpack and settle in and watch what was going on. But I'm always replaying in my head, wow, that was a long way when I was standing down there. But when you get to the top and look back down, it doesn't look nearly as far as it did from the bottom looking up. And that concept of just, put your eyes on the guy in front of you and just move when he moves. Just move when he moves. And I think we've talked about that a few different times with a few different people. I remember when our buddy Jason was on talking about his bear hunt in Alaska and having to pack out all that weight and the importance of having somebody with him to keep pushing him when it was heavy and was hard to walk. And it just hit home for me in the field while I was out in Wyoming.
That's good, man. I love that perspective of not only what it took for you, I think, even in the midst of doing something that probably was speaking to your soul and was a soul tie for you, it was still very difficult. And so having that perspective of what it was going to take to get through this challenging adventure. And that's why I love them. I love this idea of adventure hunting, just quote unquote adventure hunting, because there's often an element in that hunt that is very challenging, and we always talk about how, and as much as it stinks, and you're like, why does it have to be that way? Man, we learn the most, and that's where we experience the most, and that's where we will always experience our greatest potential in our lives, and where we will be. Where we will see and understand maybe truly why we're here and what our purpose is for. It will come in our pressed time. But all of us who are pressed and come out the other side well and have grown and have experienced the more in our life because of that pressing, I think the common denominator is we've been able to identify somebody or something to keep our eyes fixed on, somebody to follow in their footsteps. And so I think that was a beautiful representation of just the reality of what it's going to take, not only to be successful in an environment like that, whether you're hunting, hiking, whatever, but it's also a beautiful picture of what it's going to take in your life and in your growth and in your experience to get where you're trying to go. Is who are you following? Who are you following? You hear us talk about all the time that you were not meant to do this thing alone, and you're not. But taking that to the next level is you also need to have someone who can tug you along and who can show you, not show you your path, because ultimately I think your path you have to figure out, but can at least guide you in the potential pitfalls and the stumbling blocks. And man, it looks good, right? But I went right once. And I'm just telling you, you probably need to go left. And to have somebody in your life like that you can follow in their steps and follow in their experience to ultimately navigate your own journey is beautiful. And I think if we can grab a hold of that in our lives and we can achieve that and find that person and even be just willing to do it, like drop your pride and be willing to find the back of somebody's boots to follow every waking step, to lock your eyes in on and chase everything that they chase. I mean, I think it's a beautiful, beautiful picture.
And so here's where it lands for me. I needed his boots in my vision when I was pushing uphill, when the weight was heavy, when I was tired. I didn't need him on my way down. Mm-hmm. I didn't need anybody to encourage me when it was easy, right? When I had the momentum.
Yeah.
When we were headed back to the car, quote unquote, right? I knew my way, right? I could see it in the distance. But it's when the times are tough and I was exhausted and I thought I was done that I would look ahead, and when he was moving, I kept moving. And it was encouragement, right? That's when we got to have that. Yeah. That's when it becomes so important to have other people around you and have somebody's boots in front of you, somebody to follow. Is the moment that you are willing to give up. Mm-hmm. That's what'll pull you through.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, some of you may be listening to this and thinking, I don't really need any encouragement. And I'm sorry to say, but your time's coming. The time's coming for all of us that, man, it's going to be hard. There's going to be some peaks and valleys, and there's going to be times where we're digging out of quicksand, it feels like. And man, praise God if you're not there, but just know that there's going to be a season of your life where you're going to need somebody or people surrounding you to help you navigate through that challenging, difficult, hard season in your life. And I think, Brandon, my biggest encouragement for the listeners and really for everybody is you cannot wait until you're in the darkness, until you're in the grind to decide whether you're going to be willing to do that. And so what are you doing now to prepare yourself, to put people in your life, to put a person in your life that you can trust and that is seasoned and that they're worth following, right? That it is of value to fix your eyes on the back of their heels and their boots. And so start now identifying those people, because we don't ever know when that hard season's coming. It could happen in the blink of an eye, right? Or it could be something that you have to prepare for. You will be your greatest. You will become your greatest. You will experience your greatest. The closest you'll ever get to your true gifting, your true abilities, your true purpose. You will experience that in a difficult season, not an easy season. It just doesn't happen. Hard seasons in your life are very valuable, but how are you going to prepare yourself to win those hard seasons? And the main thing is, I think, is making sure you have people around you and someone to follow in that hard time. Well, guys, obviously Brandon, time in Wyoming is coveted on my end and probably on a lot of your others, and next trip is mine, FYI. But I'm glad you had a good time and that you really kind of saw some cool things, and even the idea of harvesting an animal at 513 yards is pretty spectacular. But mainly, guys, I hope that this was encouraging to you, just to gain that perspective. Just again, a nugget to chew on in your journey, in your process. And so, until next week or next time, guys, find somebody to follow and stick close to them. And I think if you do, you'll not only be a man who matters, but you'll feel like a man who matters, especially in your hardest seasons. You guys have a great week. We'll see you next time.